guys, welcome back to another video of the story that has not been given a title yet. Thank you to everyone who asked me to keep doing these, namely my mom is threatening me to do these. Love you, Mom. Content warning, the story in this chapter has threats of violence and a firearm mentioned. If you are not comfortable with that, please click off the video. And also for future videos, I will be adding content warnings, but also there will definitely be a whole lot more violence and a whole lot more firearms in the future. So if that isn't your thing, don't get invested into the story, I guess. Thank you to my patrons who are making all of this possible. Your support really means a lot and is why I'm able to make these videos. So thank you very much, and if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, it will be hopefully in the description. And also in the description will be a link to the original work that this story was based off of. So if you want really good writing, first of all, read it. But also if you want more context into the world and story building, I definitely recommend you read it. But also there will be spoilers in there, so if you really want to be invested in this story, you might want to only read a chapter or two. Because, yeah, I mean, it's a fan fiction, so everything's kind of, you're already getting spoiled. You get to know who the characters are beforehand. So because of this story and the fact that I don't really like my own writing, I have a challenge for you guys. I will keep making more of these story videos if I get at least 10 likes and 3 comments critiquing this video on the video, not on Facebook or anything like that. On this video, 3 comments critiquing this. I will continue to make more. If not, you can message me personally through YouTube or Instagram or my Patreon. I can probably just send you the document with the story if you're that interested, if I don't make more of these. Thank you for listening and supporting my work. If you like the art or the speed paints, I definitely recommend you go look at my other stuff. There's dialogue in this video. That means there is voice acting by yours truly, which is not the greatest. And I don't have good voices for the characters yet. These are probably not their permanent voices, because hopefully I will get better at voice acting the more I do it. Enjoy the video. Light slowly drained from the room, the motes of dust floating lazily around in the dimly lit space. Vigilante's hideout had very little movement, Mina's slow breathing being the only noise. Her eyes were trained on the 2 entrances, the half-boarded up window and the door. The stillness was aggravating to no end for Mina, but she had to be patient. She had spent the last 2 weeks taking out threats that the Vigilante had scoped out without them knowing who was doing it. She had spent the rest of her waking moments following around the Vigilante. Their constant movement made it a challenge, but no matter where they went, she followed. They spent half of their time in alleys and seedy establishments, hunting down or helping those that were unfortunate enough to reside there. The rest of the time, they were in government buildings or places of high reputation. The changes in scenery were quite drastic, and the Vigilante changed just as much to blend in. However, there were a very few people that needed help in the wealthier places. Instead, they were almost always stealing something. Documents, ill-gotten goods, anything that helped in their fight against corruption. It wasn't just items that they were stealing either. The most interesting part of shadowing the Vigilante was the hearts they had stolen. 2, in particular. Mina had quickly found that she wasn't the only shadow. There were a pair of animatronic detectives that were practically glued to them. Of course, they weren't nearly as good as the Vigilante, always 3 moves behind them. They seemed to be brothers. The one active during the day shift had the face of a smiling sun, sun rays and cheery demeanor included. His suits were often a light brown, and his professional attire seemed to be cleaned and pressed to perfection. His counterpart was almost always active in the night shift. His face was very similar to his partner's, the large, semi-permanent grin the same, but half of his face was painted black and the other half white, in the shape of a crescent moon. His attire was almost always in navy or black, and not nearly as pressed to perfection as the sun's, but he always had on a dark fedora. Never once did it come off, and Mina was itching to nab it off him just to see his reaction. They were both extremely tall and lanky, and their heights both at 7 feet. They had speed and strength that excelled any average human. But the Vigilante was anything but average, and they both knew it. That had to be why they were always on the hunt for them. Never mind that almost everything the vigilante does was illegal, and it was their job to uphold the law. They also seemed to be chasing after them for personal reasons. Almost every day, the vigilante would interact with at least one of them, whether it was waving at them before ducking away before they had the chance to react, or subtly interfering in one of their cases to either help them or take away information. Sometimes, the moon would even straight up chase them down streets and alleyways. But every time, the vigilante got away scot-free. They never seemed to mind, though. The banter was always lighthearted, and the constant escaping rarely seemed to bother them. In fact, Vigilante and them always seemed pleased to see each other. They all worked together to make the city a better place, though their methods were different. Through the constant spying, Mina found that Vigilante was very observant and, well, vigilant. She could stay in the shadows, spying and helping where she could, but not only was that not her style, Vigilante would most assuredly notice, and the chance of working together would likely be spoiled. So here she was, in the dark, dust itching her nose and chin resting on the back of the wooden chair, waiting for the vigilante so that she could have a proper introduction. She almost huffed at a piece of hair that was threatening to touch her face, but couldn't risk making any noise. The sounds of the street were muffled. Very occasionally did the headlights of a vehicle show through the boarded-up window. All the light had left, save for the faint glow of an artificial street lamp that peeked through the boards on the window. Stretching her neck to the side to let it pop, Mina fought against a yawn that had been threatening her since the sunset. The small creak from the hallway easily banished any glimpse of sleep, however. Mina was careful not to move, but her posture tightened and eyes shot to the door. The building was silent. Even the regular groaning of the condemned building seemed to pause in anticipation. But soon, there was another creak, then another. The creaks seamlessly shifted into soft footsteps. Following their path from the other side of the wall, Mina traced their path all the way outside of the room's door. They paused, and Mina held her breath. Slowly, they turned the handle and strolled inside. Their soft silhouette was easier to see in the dark because of how her eyes had adjusted, but it was difficult to make out any details. They expertly swerved around files on the ground and went straight to the window. They covered the opening with a thick, dark cloth that had been lying beside it. This left the room in complete and total darkness. And before Mina's eyes could adjust, they had turned on the light switch. Suddenly, they were lit up by a singular bulb, features visible and radiant. Their face was tired, but beneath the sleep deprivation, they were still doggedly determined on whatever new case they had come to work on. Their simple jacket and button-up shirt was rumpled after a long day on the streets, dodging detectives and stealing corrupt money. Their hair was in need of a brush from their escapades, but it was still held back into the ribboned ponytail. Mina had relaxed, grinning ear to ear, as Vigilante quickly registered that they weren't alone. In a smooth motion, they had their pistol drawn and pointed squarely at her face. She didn't flinch, expecting the reaction. "Hey, sugar. How you doing?" she drawled. Their face slowly relaxed at seeing her defenseless, and they returned the grin, though much more sickly sweet. The gun never wavered, though, pointing straight at Mina's head. Finger close, but not touching the trigger. "I'm doing great. To whom do I owe this unexpected pleasure?" They poured enough sugar into their question to poison, which made Mina all the more giddy. Seeing the vigilante banter was a treat, but being on the receiving end was to die for. Slowly, Mina sat up straight, allowing her frozen muscles to stretch in relief at changing positions. She gave the stiff hero a genuine wide smile. They cocked their head to the side and returned the smile, but it was tight-lipped and wary. "Why, I'm a fan, quite a big fan, of your handiwork." Their trigger finger twitched minutely. Their expression was frozen, but Mina's words seemed to have struck a nerve. Staring into their bottomless, beautiful eyes, Mina saw the flashes of a memory, of someone else relaying the same sentiments, but for much more cruel reasons. There was a flash of gold and crimson, then another memory, of purple and blood, betrayal in thick smoke. As quickly as the glimpses came, they left. A small peek into the Vigilante's past, but it was potent. Of course you are. There are many who admire me. You will have to be more specific. Mina adjusted herself in her position, tucking one of her pant-covered legs under herself while leaning her head on her hands. How silly of me! I'm Mina, and I'm quite interested in your current pursuits. How you... She made the shape of a gun with her free hand and pretended to fire it at the wall, away from the Vigilante. Are cleaning up the streets and the top brass. It's quite impressive what you've accomplished. I'm new to the city and already can see your impact. Slowly, the Vigilante lowered their gun. It wasn't completely down, but Mina's face wasn't in immediate danger. They were still tense, however, and there was no doubt that Mina would get a bullet hole if she turned aggressive. But she had no intention of doing so. Vigilante was a master of games, and now that she had a chance to be a player, Mina couldn't screw it up. That's kind of you to notice. Did you really pay me a visit just to shower me with praise, Mina? They asked, waving their gun hand theatrically. The act of nonchalance was impressive, but it was easy to tell what their true question was. What do you want, and who sent you? Isn't that reason enough? Mina giggled at the eyebrow that Vigilante shot up. You're quite right. That is only the partial reason. I wish to offer my services. I am aware that you're more of a one-person show, but don't you wish you could be in more places at once? Carefully, she stood up. Still resting one of her legs on the chair, she spread her arms wide. You are truly magnificent and effective at what you do. With a bit of your direction, I could be an extra cog, a helping hand in your operation. You could cover twice the ground in this city. I assure you, I am good at what I do, and can bend to fit into any job you need. They scoffed. The only thing you've assured me of is that you can sweet talk. What use is that? You seem to sweet talk your way into and out of a lot. That's because I'm good at it. And your good looks are very helpful. But I digress. Mina batted her eyelashes playfully, earning a genuine smirk from Vigilante. You are already a bit aware of my skills. You know of that gang that was hanging out near the nighttime fun district? The one that was getting bigger and more aggressive to the evening crowd? They nodded. I was about to break them up, give the people a bit of a break. But they disappeared a week ago. Am I to take it that this was your doing? Mina tapped her nose, winking. You got it. And the mob family that was sending ruffians to collect from the apartments in the southwest now don't have enough people to send. And a certain official that has been clearing the dumpage of factory waste into our pretty river has had a few rough things revealed in the paper, effectively removing her from office. The new information seemed to satisfy Vigilante enough, letting them mostly relax and start toward the desk. This gave Mina the room to move from the corner she had been effectively trapped in. Thrilled, she followed them to stand on the other side of the desk. They seemed to be mulling a few things over as they deposited their jacket on the back of the desk chair. If you are truly responsible for those, it would be a little impressive. But you seem to be doing just fine on your own. Why would I take the risk of you interfering with my work? That's just it. Mina held up a finger, making the point that this was the crux of her persuasion. I'm aimless, striking targets willy-nilly. Without any of your planning, I run the risk of constantly treading over your toes. With you actively sending me off on missions, I can be sent completely away from whatever you're working on. This can also be used as distractions and move police or criminal attention away from anything you want under the radar. Or, on anything you need more of a bang, I can be extra muscle. Her pathetic flexing clearly amused Vigilante, who snickered, but nodded. Well, doll, you've certainly made your points. I could think of a few things where that could be useful. But I can't afford to be distracted by your well-being or take time to teach you. You would be a weakness. They leaned on the chair slightly, gaze relaxed, but daring the eager intruder to dispute their argument. Mina gladly took the dare. I can take care of myself, honey. And if not, what's one more body in the firefight? I don't need payment, security, or even friendship if you don't offer it. I'll just be one more lockpick up your sleeve. She winked, gesturing to their shirt sleeve, where she knew they kept countless pins that they used for numerous sticky situations. Vigilante grinned, genuinely pleased at Mina's notice of one of their calling cards. Humming, they tapped their chin for dramatic effect while looking away, thinking. In turn, Mina folded her arms and shifted her weight to one side, intently watching their face for any sign of what they were thinking. She kept a small smile, the only betrayal of the cool facade she was temporarily putting on. After a few agonizing moments, Vigilante drifted their sly gaze back to her and smiled. Mina beamed back and stretched out her hand. After careful thought, your application has been reviewed and accepted. We are willing to offer you a trial period of your services, they joked, taking her hand and giving it a firm shake as if they'd finished up a job interview. They held it a moment longer in their grip, face very stern. If you are found inadequate or harmful to the business in any way, expected speedy termination. Their tone was light, but Mina got the hint. She would surely regret any backstabbing, if she was inclined to do so. Even if it wouldn't be directly from the Vigilante, she could count on two dangerous detectives to pay back any wrongdoings. Plus interest. I am very honored to have been accepted, and am looking forward to working with you in the near future, she beamed. They broke the handshake, and Mina gave an exaggerated bow. Do you have anything for me yet? She chirped, absently turning on a small lamp that had been neglected on the desk. The light illuminated the papers on the desk, scattered as they were. Vigilantes shook their head. Give me some time. I'll have something for you soon, after I figure out what you'll be good for. They shooed her away with their gun hand before sitting down. Mina skipped backwards, narrowly missing boxes and files. With one last flourish, she shut the door behind her while spinning. However, she made sure to quiet her footsteps as she strolled down the hallway. It was a small way to prove how sneaky she could be, as a small cherry on top of her totally skilled begging/negotiations. She crept up the stairs, opting to go to the third floor instead of the roof. She really didn't want to leap across the street again, and possibly bring attention to herself with her noise, so she carefully made her way across the sparse floorboards to a window that wasn't completely boarded up. It was at the back of the alley, furthest away from the street. Clambering out of the small opening, she leapt off the building, letting herself drift to the ground slow enough not to hurt or make a ruckus. After her first rude surprise of her newfound susceptibility to pain, she tried to avoid the more extravagant stunts, but it would go against her very nature to never use magic. Silently, she strolled off into the night, down alleys, and took as many shortcuts to her apartment as she could. As soon as she was far enough away, and in a secluded area, she let out a cheer, pumping her fist in the air. Her flats hit the broken pavement in an offbeat rhythm of victory. Twirling, Mina couldn't keep quiet the giggles of relief. The empty alley echoed with her glee, the far-off traffic oblivious. She was as giddy as a fan getting to meet their idol. And, in a way, she did. Better yet, she had secured a way to keep seeing them. With an impulsive burst of energy, Mina ran straight at a brick wall, and instead of running into it, she ran up it and jumped off, doing a backflip. Gasping air roughly into her lungs between laughing, she slowly calmed herself down. A few controlled breaths allowing her energy levels to return to normal. Straightening back up, she brushed away imaginary dirt off her shirt. Beaming, she puffed her chest out and continued her stroll to her apartment. There was going to be a lot to do, after she got some sleep of course, and then her adventures with Vigilante would begin.